Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Agriculture, SOA, Master of Science in Food Safety and Quality Management, MSCFSQM, second year, MVP 005 Food Toxicology and Public Health, Block to Toxicants from Natural and Man-Made Sources and Contaminants, Unit-6 Pesticide Residues in Foods There, Toxicology and Safety, 6.0 Objectives. After studying this unit, you shall be able to identify the sources and occurrence of pesticides in food commodities, classification of pesticides based on different criteria, explain mode of action and toxicokinetics of pesticides, describe safety evaluation measures with the help of maximum residue limits, and outline the measures for pesticide residue control in food commodities. 6.1 Introduction. In the previous units, you have studied about the basics of food toxicology, natural toxins that could be present in food chain. You have also learned various detection methods to identify the presence of toxicants in foods and their toxicological assessment by undertaking in vitro and in vivo studies. You are also familiar with the factors that makes food unfit for consumption, especially presence of contaminants, toxic substances and adulterants. Pesticides are one such potential contaminants that pose a great risk to humans and ecosystems if not used wisely. Instead of occurring naturally, pesticides are man-made contaminant. We all know that chemical pesticides play a significant role in agriculture. There are more than 1,000 pesticides used around the world to protect crops against insects, weeds, fungi, and other pests. Each one exhibits different properties and toxicological effects. Depending on the quantity, duration, and mode of exposure, pesticides can cause acute and chronic health effects in humans. In India, most abundantly used pesticides includes insecticides and fungicides followed by herbicides and rodenticides. In FY 2020, the pesticide consumption in India was 192,000 metric tons, which was raised to 255,000 metric tons in 2021. India is also one of the largest manufacturers of pesticides globally. The highest pesticide consumption can be seen in the states of Maharashtra, followed by UP, Punjab, and Haryana. Still, per hectare consumption of pesticides is considerably lower in India as compared to the countries. According to World Health Organization, WHO, pesticides shall be tested for all possible health risks and their outcomes shall be analyzed by experts before they are authorized for use. It is also important to note that just because a pesticide residue is detected on a food commodity, that doesn't mean it is unfit for consumption. Very small amounts of pesticide residues remain on the harvested fruits, vegetables, grains, and other food commodities, and their concentration decreases considerably during further handling and transportation due to exposure to sunlight, washing, and preparation of food. General sources of exposure of pesticides in humans may be accidental, intentional, or occupational. Accidentally, pesticides may enter water, air, or anywhere when it is sprayed or applied to crops. Residues occur when these pesticides are sprayed on crop products in excess of recommended levels not following withdrawal period. There are three ways by which a pesticide can enter the human body: by direct contact through the skin, oral ingestion, and by inhalation. Keeping this in view, the present unit deals with the occurrence, classification, sources, mode of toxic action, toxicity, and related regulations of various pesticides. The unit also discusses importance of corrective actions to reduce usage of pesticides in safeguarding public health. 6.2 Terms and definitions. Pest, according to Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO 2014, pest means any species, strain or biotype of plant, animal or pathogenic agent injurious to plants and plant products. materials, or environment includes vectors of parasites or pathogens of human and animal, disease and animals causing public health nuisance. Pesticides are defined as broad spectrum of chemical or organic substances which include insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, plant growth regulators, etc. Pesticides are defined by the Pesticide Management Bill 2020 as any substance or mixture of substances, including a formulation of chemical or biological origin intended for preventing, destroying, attracting, repelling, mitigating, or controlling any pest in agriculture, industry, pest control operations, public health, storage, or for ordinary use, and includes any substance intended for use as a plant growth regulator, defoliant, desiccant, fruit thinning agent, or sprouting inhibitor, and any substance applied to crops either before or after harvest to protect them from deterioration during storage and transport. Residue. A residue is defined by the European Union, EU, and the Centre for Veterinary Medicine, FDA CVM, an agency working under the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, of the USA as follows: pharmacologically active substances, either active principles, recipients, or degradation products of these, and their metabolites remaining in foodstuffs or any place at any point of time. Maximum residue limit, MRL according to FAO, the maximum concentration of a residue that is legally permitted or recognized as acceptable in or on a food or agricultural commodity or animal feedstuff, FAO, 2014, life cycle. According to FAO, life cycle of a pesticide refers to all the stages a pesticide might pass through from production to its degradation in the environment after use, or its destruction as an unused product. The life cycle includes manufacture, formulation, packaging, distribution, storage, transport, use and final disposal of a pesticide product and/or its container. FAO 2014. Good agricultural practice gap. According to FAO, gap in use of pesticides includes the officially recommended or nationally authorized uses of pesticides under actual conditions necessary for effective and reliable pest control. It encompasses a range of levels of pesticide applications up to the highest authorized use, applied in a manner which leaves a residue which is the smallest amount practicable. FAO 2014. Withdrawal period, the wait time between the pesticide application and harvesting of a crop. During withdrawal period, pesticide is either completely broken down in the plant soil or present in a very minuscule quantity well below the MRL. 6.3 classification of pesticides. You are now familiar with the terms pests and pesticides. In this section, you can learn how pesticides are classified. Pesticides can be classified based on their use, target pests, mode of action, toxicity, and molecular structure. 6.3.1 Classification based on target pests. No. Term definition examples: 1. Acaricides used to kill mites and ticks, or for disrupting their growth and development. DDT, fenpyroxamate, dicophol. 2. Antifeedants to prevent insects or other pests from feeding. Chlordimphone, azadirachtin, fentin. 3. Bactericides to destroy or inhibit bacteria in soil plants. Copper hydroxide, casugamicin, streptomycin, tetracycline. 4. Fungicides to prevent or cure the fungal infection. Thiabendazole, thiophanate-methyl, carbendazim. 5. Chemosterilants prevents reproducing capacity of insects. Aziridinil, diflubenzuron. 6. Herbicides pesticides used to destroy plants. Paraquat, glyphosate. 4D. 7. Insecticides pesticides used to destroy insects. Imp. Groups: organophosphates, organochlorines, carbamates, phenylpiazole, neonicotinoids, etc. Pesticides are used in India for the following purposes: 1. To control insects, 80%. 2. To destroy weeds, 15%. 3. To control fungal diseases, 1. 46%. 4. For other reasons, 3%. On the other hand, global pesticide consumption is as follows: 1. Herbicides 47.5%, 2. Insecticides 29.5%, 3. Fungicides are 17.5%, 4. Others 5.5%, 6.3.2. Classification based on mode of action. The following table gives the classification of pesticides based on their mode of action. S.No type definition examples: 1. Contact. Insecticides acts on the pesticides and enters the pest through dermal contact, endosulfan, malathion, fenvalerate, to stomach. Insecticides act inside the gut, enter through ingestion toxins produced by Bacterium bacillus thuringiensis, zinc, phosphide, rodenticide, 3. Fumigant gaseous pesticides to control pests in storage houses or other sites. Aluminium, phosphide, methylbromide chloropicrin, and iodoform. 4. Systemic pesticides. The active ingredient in such pesticides are taken up by the plant and transported to various locations throughout the plant where it prevent plant-eating pests. Monocrotophos, carbofuran. 6.3.3 Categorization of pesticides based on toxicity level. The following table gives the classification of pesticides based on toxicity level. Look at the screen. 6.3.4 Classification based on chemical structure. Classification based on chemical structure is given in the table below. S.No criteria types: 1. Based on molecular structure, 1. Organic, 2. Inorganic. Source: WHO, 2009, 6.3.4.1 Organic pesticides. Most of the currently used pesticides are organic in nature. They can be further classified into the following subtypes: natural organics and synthetic organics. Natural organics in pesticides. Natural organics in pesticides are compounds derived from natural sources that are used to control pests. These substances are often extracted from plants or microorganisms. Here are a few examples: pyrethrin, derived from chrysanthemum flowers, commonly used in household insect sprays and pet shampoos; rotenvin, extracted from the roots of certain plants, such as the jicama vine; broad-spectrum insecticide, interferes with the cellular respiration of pests; neem oil, derived from the seeds of the neem tree, contains several active compounds, has insecticidal, fungicidal, and miticidal properties, widely used in organic farming. Synthetic organics in pesticides. Synthetic organics in pesticides are chemical compounds that are artificially synthesized and used for pest control purposes. These compounds are typically designed to be more potent and persistent than their natural counterparts. It's important to note that the distinction between natural and synthetic pesticides can be complex, as some synthetic pesticides may be based on natural compounds or derived from natural sources but are chemically modified to enhance their effectiveness or stability. Synthetic organics pesticides are further classified into different subclasses as following: organochlorines, organophosphates, carbamates, pyrethroids. Different categories of synthetic pesticides are illustrated in the following table. Class example: area of action: organochlorine, pesticides, DDT, aldrin, dieldrin, toxaphene; reproductive system, nervous system, endocrine glands, and immune system; organophosphate, compounds, diazinon, malathion, glyphosate; nervous system, carbamate pesticides, carbofuran, carbaryl, aldicarb; nervous system, pyrethroid compounds, fenpropanthrin, cypermethrin, deltamethrin; nervous system. Source: WHO, 2009, 6.3.4.2 Inorganic pesticides. Inorganic pesticides are chemical compounds that are derived from non-living matter, typically minerals, and are used for pest control purposes. They differ from organic pesticides in that they do not contain carbon-based compounds. Example: copper sulfate is a commonly used inorganic pesticide. It is a compound composed of copper, sulfur, and oxygen. It is available in various forms, such as copper sulfate pentahydrate, and is used to control fungi, bacteria, and some insect pests. Inorganic pesticides are still used today, but their usage is often limited to specific situations and crops. Use of inorganic pesticides has decreased over time due to increasing concerns about their potential toxicity and environmental impact. Many countries have implemented regulations and restrictions on their use to ensure safer and more sustainable pest control practices. 6.4 Mode of action, pharmacokinetics, and toxic dose of chemical pesticides in humans. Before understanding pharmacokinetics and toxicity, we need to understand that the routes of exposure to pesticides could be oral, through swallowing by mouth, dermal, ingestion through the skin, or the parenteral route, administration by injection. WHO, World Health Organization, has provided specific limits for different routes of exposure of pesticides. The below table gives you an idea of different dosages expected to cause toxicity or risk through any chemical oral route of exposure. Category No. LD50 mg kg body weight hazard level statement 1. 6.4.2.1 Mode of action, organophosphate compounds OP inhibit two enzymes acetylcholinesterase (ACE) and butyrylcholinesterase or plasma cholinesterase (PCHA). These enzymes are known to break down acetylcholine. 1. Blockage of ACE leads to excessive accumulation of acetylcholine majorly in the central nervous system (CNS). 2. Aging may be occurred due to total inhibition of ACE when these compounds bind covalently to the enzymes. The rate of aging varies highly dependent upon the type of active ingredient, level of exposure, and the route of exposure. Dimethylated OP compounds such as dimethoate cause aging faster than the diethyl agents such as chlorpyrifos, while lipophilic OP compounds could be seen to get released through the blood circulation over days to weeks after exposure, thereby prolonging the aging. 6.4.2.2 Mechanism of toxic action. OP molecules are known to be absorbed via skin, inhalation, or through gastrointestinal (GI) tract. As soon as the molecule gets absorbed and binds to acetylcholinesterase receptor, it starts its inactivating action, inhibiting the activity of the enzyme acetylcholinesterase, which is responsible for breaking down the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, malathion. By inhibiting this enzyme, malathion leads to an accumulation of acetylcholine in the nervous system, disrupting normal nerve signaling. This disruption affects both insects and mammals. Excessive accumulation of acetylcholine leads to flaccid paralysis. Extreme cases may lead to hypertension, sweating, leukocytosis, tachycardia, etc. Parathion functions similarly to malathion by inhibiting acetylcholinesterase. Its toxic effects are overstimulation of the nervous system. Parathion is highly toxic and has been phased out or restricted in many countries due to its potential health hazards. Sarin is an extremely toxic organophosphorus nerve agent developed for chemical warfare, as it is a potent acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. Sarin rapidly penetrates the body through inhalation, ingestion, or skin contact. It affects the nervous system by blocking the breakdown of acetylcholine, resulting in overstimulation of nerve receptors. Exposure to even small amounts of sarin can lead to severe symptoms, including convulsions, respiratory distress, and ultimately, death. The overstimulation of cholinergic receptors leads to a wide range of symptoms, such as muscle, tremors, respiratory distress, paralysis, convulsions, and ultimately, if untreated, can result in death. While organophosphorus compounds can be highly toxic, they are also used for beneficial purposes such as agricultural pest control and public health measures against disease-carrying insects. However, their use should always be strictly regulated, and appropriate safety measures should be in place to minimize the risks associated with their toxicity. 6.4.2.3 Toxic dose. The table below gives the toxic dose of some of the OP compounds. Look at the screen. 6.4.3 Carbamates. Chemically, carbamates are similar to the organophosphates. They are derived from carbamic acid, whereas OP compounds are derivatives of phosphoric acid. Carbamates get volatilized easily from the soil. Hence, the risk of long-term residues with carbamates is minimal. Carbamates are usually applied directly to the plants and then tend to reach the soil. Bioaccumulation happens to a small extent. But if they reach water bodies, they occur in drinking water. Various sources of carbamates are following. Natural sources. Methyl carbamate physostigmine, or esrine, is a naturally occurring compound that is isolated earlier from calabar beans. Man-made sources, binomial and carbendazim, which belong to the benzimidazole class of fungicides, are those used in farming practices. These synthetic and organic pesticides are largely produced and widely used. 6.4.3.1 Mode of action. Carbamates like OP compounds inactivate ACE, thereby affecting nervous system. The reaction is known as carbamylation, in which carbamates bind to ACE. Regeneration of ACE tends to be faster than with phosphorylated compounds. It is observed that the proportion required to cause death is relatively larger than that needed to elicit symptoms for carbamates in comparison to that of OP compounds. Due to their highly volatile nature, they can be easily degraded with minimum environmental pollution. 6.4.3.2 Mechanism of toxic action. Carbamate compounds are a class of chemicals that contain the carbamate functional group, a carbonyl group attached to an amino group. They have been widely used as insecticides and pesticides due to their effectiveness against a range of pests. Here are examples of carbamate compounds and their mechanism of toxicity. Carbaryl. Carbaryl is a commonly used carbamate insecticide. It acts as an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, similar to organophosphorus compounds. Carbaryl binds reversibly to the active site of acetylcholinesterase, inhibiting its function. This leads to the accumulation of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter, in the synaptic cleft, resulting in overstimulation of cholinergic receptors and disruption of nerve signaling. Carbaryl toxicity affects both insects and mammals. Aldicarb. Aldicarb is another carbamate insecticide. It is highly toxic and has a rapid onset of action. Aldicarb also inhibits acetylcholinesterase, leading to the buildup of acetylcholine in the nervous system. It affects both central and peripheral nervous systems, causing symptoms such as excessive salivation, muscle tremors, convulsions, and respiratory paralysis. Methomyl. Methomyl is a carbamate insecticide used for controlling a wide range of pests. Its mechanism of toxicity is similar to other carbamates. Methomyl inhibits acetylcholinesterase, resulting in the accumulation of acetylcholine and disruption of nerve signaling. It affects both the central and peripheral nervous systems, leading to symptoms such as muscle twitching, respiratory distress, and neurological abnormalities. The mechanism of toxicity of carbamate compounds involves the reversible inhibition of acetylcholinesterase, leading to the accumulation of acetylcholine and disruption of normal nerve function. Unlike organophosphorus compounds, carbamates generally have a shorter duration of action because their inhibition of acetylcholinesterase is reversible. However, carbamates can still pose risks to human health and the environment. These compounds are said to be synthetic analogues of toxic alkaloid compound physostigmine that occur in calar beans. These are highly poisonous when orally administered to mammals. Aldicarb is an exception that causes skin irritation. The breakdown of carbamates occurs in two steps. In the first step, hydrolysis of carbamates to carbamic acid happens, and in the second stage, carbamic acid decomposes to carbon dioxide and the respective amine group. Carbamates produce moderate eye and skin irritation, dependent upon the method of usage, time of exposure, and whether the chemical comes in contact with the skin directly or not. The carbamate compounds, apart from AKE inhibition activity, are also known to cause liver damage and kidney injuries. It might also lead to degeneration of the testes. The effect is also seen in the nervous system. All these dysfunctionalities and effects are mostly related to the type and structure of the carbamates and the species to a smaller extent. Ethyl carbamate is also known as urethane and is a known carcinogen. Carbamates can be converted into nitroso compounds, which are potent mutagens and carcinogens. This conversion to nitroso compounds is evident from in vivo trials due to concerns about their potential toxicity and environmental impact. Carbamates use is decreased over years. Integrated pest management (IPM) strategies, including the use of biological control agents and less toxic alternatives, are often recommended to minimize reliance on carbamate insecticides and promote safer pest management practices. 6.4.4 Pyrethroids. Pyrethroids are organic compounds like pyrethrin that occur naturally in flowers of pyrethrum, Chrysanthemum cinerariifolium and Chrysanthemum coccineum. Pyrethroids are used as common insecticides in households. These compounds are usually harmless to people. 6.4.4.1 Mode of action. These are known to be potent inhibitors of cytochrome 450 enzymes, thereby disturbing the respiratory system of pests. They can cause paralysis of the organisms by disrupting the activities of ion channel gateways. They are also capable of disrupting neuroendocrine activity, leading to serious misfunctioning of CNS. 6.4.4.2 Mechanism of toxic action. Pyrethroids are a class of synthetic insecticides that are derived from natural pyrethrins, which are extracted from chrysanthemum flowers. Pyrethroids are widely used in agriculture, public health, and household insecticides due to their effectiveness against a range of pests. Here are examples of pyrethroid compounds and their mechanism of toxicity. Permethrin. Permethrin is one of the most commonly used pyrethroids. It is used in agricultural settings as well as in household insecticides and mosquito control programs. Permethrin acts by disrupting the nervous system of insects. It affects the voltage-gated sodium channels in the nerve cells, leading to prolonged sodium channel opening and delayed repolarization. This results in repetitive nerve firing and eventually paralysis and death of the insects. Cypermethrin. Cypermethrin is another widely used pyrethroid insecticide. It shares a similar mechanism of action with permethrin. Cypermethrin also affects voltage-gated sodium channels, causing prolonged opening and inhibition of normal repolarization. This disrupts nerve signal transmission, leading to paralysis and death of the target pests. Deltamethrin. Deltamethrin is a pyrethroid insecticide known for its strong insecticidal activity and long-lasting effectiveness. Like other pyrethroids, deltamethrin acts on sodium channels in the nerve cells, leading to their prolonged opening and inhibition of repolarization. This results in overstimulation of the nervous system, paralysis, and eventual death of the targeted insects. The mechanism of toxicity of pyrethroids involves their interaction with voltage-gated sodium channels in the nerve cells of insects. By prolonging the opening of these channels, pyrethroids disrupt the normal electrical signaling process, leading to hyperexcitability, paralysis, and ultimately death of the pests. It's important to note that pyrethroids generally have low toxicity to mammals and humans due to their rapid breakdown and elimination from the body. However, it's crucial to use pyrethroids according to the recommended dosage and safety guidelines to minimize any potential risks to human health and the environment. Additionally, some individuals may be more sensitive to pyrethroids, so proper precautions should be taken, such as avoiding direct exposure and using protective measures when handling or applying pyrethroid-based products. 6.5 Safety Evaluation of Pesticide Residues. You have now learned the importance of pesticides in food production. The use of pesticides are especially important in developing and underdeveloped countries that face food shortages. However, long-term as well as indiscriminate use of pesticides has resulted in serious health effects, especially to highly vulnerable population including infants. Pesticides can cause both acute and chronic health effects if not used properly. To protect people from the adverse effects of pesticides, WHO has developed internationally accepted maximum residue limits (MRL) for each class of pesticides. Individually used pesticides. Risk assessment of pesticide residues in food commodities are carried out based on the data submitted for national registrations of pesticides globally as well as from reported research in peer-reviewed journals. After assessing the risk level, safe limits of pesticide residue were established considering the fact that lifetime exposure shall not result in adverse health effects. FSSAI has also set MRL maximum limits of pesticide residues in different food commodities. You can find it in the FSS, Contaminants, Toxins and Residues, Regulation 2011 and its further amendments. Codex standards are considered as a reference for international trade in food, and currently there are Codex standards for more than 100 different pesticides. 6.5.1 Maximum Residue Limits, i.e. MRL. MRL can be defined as a maximum concentration of a residue that may result from the registered use of a particular veterinary or agricultural chemical, which is legally recommended, permitted, or recognized as acceptable to use in or on a food, animal, agricultural commodity, and/or animal feed. The concentration will be expressed as milligrams per kilogram of that commodity or in milligrams per liter in the case of liquid commodities. 6.6 Management of Chemical Pesticides and its Regulation. 6.6.1 Role of WHO. As we have discussed earlier, it is the responsibility of WHO and FAO, joint FAO-WHO, meeting on pesticide residues, JMPR, for assessing potential health risks associated with pesticides on humans considering all possible routes of exposure. After assessing the level of risk from the collected data, JMPR establishes safe limits of intake ensuring that the lifetime exposure of pesticide residue food consumption will not cause adverse health effects. WHO and FAO have jointly developed the International Code of Conduct on Pesticide Management. Available from WHO and FAO have jointly developed the International Code of Conduct on Pesticide Management, available from https://www.fao.org/3/i3604e/i3604e.pdf. The JMPR is also responsible for providing recommendations on adequate protection measures to avoid toxicity related to exposure of pesticides. 6.6.2 Role of Codex Alimentarius Commission. The acceptable daily intake data provided by JMPR is used by the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residues, CCPR, of Codex Alimentarius Commission, the intergovernmental body that sets food standards to establish maximum residue limits, MRLs, for pesticides in food, following Codex standards for pesticide residues help in international trading of food and feed commodity switch otherwise could be problematic when limits differ between countries. 6.6.3 Pesticide Regulation in India, the Insecticides Act, 1968, the legislation was formed with a view to prevent health risks to humans and animals in connection with the use of insecticides. A registration committee was established by the central government by which it became mandatory to register the insecticides The committee verifies the claims made by the manufacturer or importer regarding the efficacy and safety of the insecticide. As per Food Safety and Standards Act, 2006, a scientific panel was constituted by the FSSAI to recommend MRL on the basis of data provided by Central Insecticides Board and Registration Committee. These MRLs are notified under FSS, Contaminants, Toxins and Residues, Regulations, 2011 and its amendments, MRL, ppm, of insecticide as per FSSAI for eggs, fishes, and dry fruits. Look at the screen, MRL, ppm, of insecticide as per FSSAI for food grains, S.No. Pesticide residue food grains, 1 to 4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, 0.01, to binomial 0.5, 3-carbaryl 1.5, 4-carbendazim 0.1, 5-chlorpyrifos 0.05, 6-deltamethrin, decamethrin, 0.3, 7-dichlorvos, DDVP, 1, 6.7 reduction of pesticide residues in food. A code of conduct for the management of pesticides was developed by the WHO and FAO in 2014, which provides guidance for regulating bodies, private bodies, and various stakeholders on acceptable practices for use of pesticides. To implement a residue avoidance program effectively in the food production practices, people need to be aware of all the pharmacological principles of pesticides. The half-life, T12, of a pesticide is the time required by the pesticide to get 50% removed from the soil. A pesticide with large volumes of distribution, VD, generally has reported possessing good tissue distribution characteristics as compared to a pesticide of restricted distribution. People are facing an increased change in their attitude and behavior concerning pesticide residues. The most likely reason for the occurrence of pesticide residues in food commodities is a result of mismanagement and unsafe practices such as improper usage, including extralabel usage or illegal applications. Moreover, the most likely reason for the unacceptable residues might be attributed to the inordinate use of pesticides in the pretext of more yield by the farmers, monitoring and surveillance failure, weak enforcement, etc. Various practices to be followed for the reduction of pesticide residues in food products are following. Pesticide industry should adhere to the relevant national international regulatory guidelines. While importing or exporting, government should ensure that good trading practices are followed, adhering to good agricultural practice while application of pesticides in the farm level. It is advised to always read labels on containers to make necessary calculations on dosage before application of pesticides on crops. While processing of food commodities, adhering to good manufacturing practices can help reducing pesticide residues in the final commodity. At the household level, washing with water or soaking in solutions of salt and some chemicals, example chlorine, chlorine dioxide, hydrogen peroxide, ozone, acetic acid, hydroxyperacetic acid, iprodione and detergents can reduce the level of pesticide residues. 6.8 Summary: Pesticides are defined as a broad spectrum of chemical or organic substances which include insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, plant growth regulators, etc. Pesticides are defined by the Pesticide Management Bill, 2020 as any substance or mixture of substances, including a formulation of chemical or biological origin intended for preventing, destroying, attracting, repelling, mitigating or controlling any pest in agriculture, industry, pest control operations, public health, storage or for ordinary use, and includes any substance intended for use as a plant growth regulator, defoliant, desiccant, fruit thinning agent, or sprouting inhibitor, and any substance applied to crops, either before or after harvest to protect them from deterioration during storage and transport. Residue is defined by the European Union, EU, and the Centre for Veterinary Medicine. FDA CVM, which is an agency working under the Food and Drug Administration of the USA, as follows: pharmacologically active substances, either active principles, recipients or degradation products of these, and their metabolites remaining in foodstuffs, or any place at any point of time. Pesticides may be categorized in the following ways: O target pests, O mode of action, O toxic potential, O structure and chemical nature. WHO, World Health Organization, has classified specific limits for different routes of exposure. Since the dermal route would be having a slow rate of action compared to oral or parenteral routes, as the case may be, organochlorine compounds are the earlier discovered pesticides. DDT, dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane, is an example, which is now banned to be used as a pesticide. Some other examples include BHC, lindane, methoxycla, chlorobenzylate, and cyclodines including aldrin, dieldrin, clodane, heptachlor, and endrin. Organophosphorus compounds are a class of compounds widely used in recent times. Malathion and parathion are the two compounds of this group that widely find applicability. Methylparathion, diazinon, nald, dichlorvose, and others are some notable compounds of this class. The effect is majorly on the sucking pests like mites, aphids, etc., which damage the plant by sucking plant juices. Carbamates get volatilized easily from the soil. Hence, the risk of long-term residues with carbamates is minimal. Carbamates are usually applied directly to the plants and then tend to reach the soil. ADI is defined as the amount of a substance ingested daily over a lifetime without any appreciable health risk. ADI is calculated based on a series of toxicological safety evaluations which takes acute, long-term exposure to a chemical and its potential impacts. If a chemical is no carcinogen, then the no observed effect level, NOEL, is one of the most sensitive in the most sensitive species, which is again divided by a safety factor and used to determine ADI for that chemical residue. FDA will calculate the safe concentration for each edible tissue using the ADI. The weight in kg of an average adult, 60 kilograms, and the amount of the product eaten per day in grams as follows. Safe concentration limit is equal to ADI as g kg day, x 60 as kg, grams consumed day. MRL can be defined as a maximum concentration of a residue that may result from the registered use of a particular veterinary or agricultural chemical, which is legally recommended, permitted, or recognized as acceptable to use in or on a food, animal, agricultural commodity, and/or animal feed. The concentration will be expressed as milligrams per kilogram of that commodity, or in milligrams per liter in the case of liquid commodities. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.